Welcome back. I really enjoyed this blue shirt. It's a nice color for our Gospels. This is the last of our Gospels, so goodbye, blue shirt. We'll see what color comes up next week with our next section of books. But for our last Gospel, it is the Gospel of John, and it is a Gospel unlike any other. So, Matthew, Mark, and Luke are what we call the Synoptic Gospels. It's a fancy way of saying they have a lot in common. I mean, there's more there, but if you want more, Gospels Bible Study explains this more. However, they have a lot in common. They have a general same flow, more or less. A lot of the same material. Matthew and Luke share a lot of the same material, and then also draw from Mark. They have some unique materials. We talked a little bit yesterday with Luke Gospel as well, but they're all kind of on the same page. Pardon my library pun. The same page. And then there's John. John is out there. John's written later, the latest. John is coming from a different region, a different way of thinking, teaching, understanding the divine. John doesn't really do teachings per se. I mean, there are moments of teaching, but it's not like these long chapters upon chapters and chapters of parables and teachings, and they're stories. John's very narrative. Stories of interactions with Jesus and others. To John, the most important thing is the relationship we have between ourselves and God. God that we know through Jesus Christ. This is the center of the ethos of John. If you're looking for a book that is heavily theological, John is your gospel for sure. Like I said, if you're looking for a book that's theological, John's still up there. Just read chapter 1 and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's just oozing rich with theology, okay? The idea of Trinity is spelled out more. John he's theologically minded, but he also is keen on showing you who God is through these interactions. So if you're looking for a gospel, it's less about teachings and guidance, but rather a story. Or you're going to have to do a little more of the heavy lifting. There are no passages of Jesus saying, hey, y'all, this is what this means. Okay? There's not a lot of... in fact, the disciples are often confused in John 2. There's not a lot of, you should do this or don't do that, and this is why. Rather, it's an interaction that we're supposed to take something out of. Right? We're supposed to understand what Jesus is saying in reflection of the cross. Or in the Gospel of John, Jesus' last words is, it is finished. It's different from the other Gospels, okay? John expects you to do a little bit of the heavy lifting. He'll do the theology. You got to do the rest. Now, I will say, John is the Gospel. Of all this being said, John is the Gospel to recommend to someone who is completely new to the Christian faith, young or even young in the faith, because these stories are memorable. They're not as black and white, but they're an experience. And people that are looking for faith, that have felt God's call in their lives in subtle ways and are looking for that sign, the Gospel of John is great at delivering those stories, those messages in memorable ways, those interactions of God that they too have experienced, but now are witnessing in this word, this will. Word is a loaded word in the Gospel of John, you'll come to find. So, I'd recommend if you were newer or younger in the faith, the Gospel of John is for you. But if you're looking for something, perhaps in this time of quarantine, that is more narrative-based, that is not as heavy teaching-wise, we'll say they're all heavy in their own way, don't get me wrong. The Gospels in themselves, oh my goodness, you could read the Gospel over a year and go that in depth every day and still have something left, some meat on the bone, so to speak. But, okay, like John, I'm rambling now. But John, if you are someone who they want someone to get to the point, or if you're someone who needs the formula A plus B equals C, this, therefore this, or the theoretical questions answered, maybe not John for you. Again, I give all the Gospels a try, but I'm just telling you, if you're looking for one book occupy you in this time of social distancing. John is more abstract. In fact, John intentionally leaves questions unanswered. This idea of what is truth is hinted at through the whole gospel. It has this dramatic question of Pilate at the end asking Jesus, what is truth? The scene just kind of ends hanging in the balance, so to be continued, right? But the idea is that we're supposed to answer that based on the whole story that we've read. So John's going to expect you to do a little bit of the work yourself. Anyway, so if that sounds appealing to you, and it's engrossive, and if you are going to read John, I will say read it with someone else. Because there's so much heavy lifting, because there's so much discerning what's going on, what this all means, talk it with someone who's also reading it. It's a powerful experience. So, that's the Gospel of John, and I'll see you next week with a new shirt to continue our books of the Bible Library.